What is Qigong and how can it help you have a confident and calm life, as the title of this podcast proclaims? You will find the answers in this podcast series with host, the Confidence Coach Susan Axelrod, and co-host Nadine Searle, the Calmer Self Coach. Qigong is an ancient Chinese practice of mindfulness, but it's so much more. Called internal medicine, it is said that using the practice of Qigong can create an elixir within. Could this be true? In this podcast series, this truth will be explored by two practitioners, one former Type A and one former self-professed people pleaser. Dr. Roger Jahnke calls Qigong one of the most eloquent, poetic, and effective tools in our quest for personal breakthrough and peace of mind. Your podcast hosts, Susan and Nadine, agree. Qigong can be a new tool in your personal health practice kit. Join them for this conversation that may just change your life. Hello, friends. Welcome to this next episode of our amazing podcast series, The Principles Behind Qigong. I want to say hello and welcome to my co-host and friend and fellow practitioner, Nadine. How are you today?
Hello, Susan. I'm very good, thank you. I've got brilliant sunshine here in England, and it is lovely. I've got nature out there. I'm surrounded by trees. I'm looking at behind you, so it's beautiful. I'm in a very happy place.
Also, a perfect introduction to this episode, which we are titling How to Discover the Three Treasures That Will Change the Way You See the World. Everything Nadine and I do is very unscripted. That wasn't planned.
So in tune. The trees just spoke to me. Ta-da!
So this is funny because the trees spoke to me just yesterday. But before we go into that, I want to talk about treasure. What is treasure? Growing up, you think it's something buried. It's something that you look for. It's something that you want and wish and pray for. Treasures have great worth and great value. And I have been learning as I have become a Qigong practitioner that there are three treasures that are right within your reach. They are called the heaven or the sky above, and the earth below, and life or me in between. These are the three treasures. Now, Nadine, one of the things that we are discussing and sharing is the fact that in the practice of Qigong, there are different terms, different names for things, maybe a marginally different way to do things. But I want to ask you, does this term resonate with you? The three treasures, the sky above, the earth below, and me in between.
I haven't heard it called the three treasures, much as I love it, but I think it's the core principle of all the Qigong that I have learned and practiced, where we are connecting the whole time with what is above us, the sky or heaven, whatever we want to say. The earth is always beneath us, supporting us, and feeling that connection to the earth below. And then finding our place in the middle and knowing that we are perfectly placed. And that is how, when I was learning this and I was going along to a class every week, we started that way. We started with Wu Qi position, which I don't know if you're familiar with that. That was, I don't know if we all say things differently as well, don't we? And we stood and we got ourselves in that lovely relaxed knees, relax everything, really just feeling. And it was always said, like, feel like you're hanging from a coat hanger, which I love. That was our position. And then just feeling, we started off always connecting with the earth beneath us, connecting with the sky above, and feeling our place in between.
So this is just perfect. For years, I had heard about Qigong and also other types of practices, but I never knew what it was. I imagined what it might be. But as I've been taking my own teaching certification, as I have been studying and reading and learning more, One of the reasons it has resonated so deeply with me, Nadine, is that I realized that the mindfulness practices that I learned over the past really 25 years are deeply embedded in Qigong principles. Qigong has been around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And so, but here we have two practitioners, two people who are claiming and sharing here that these principles and practices have truly changed our lives. I'm the type A in the introduction. She's the people pleaser in the introduction. And yet there are different terms. So I was introduced to them as the three treasures, but I love how you just shared. I felt it in my body, because once you know the chi, the energy, the shama rising, the soul rising within you, you can feel it. And so the way you positioned us on the floor, the feet are relaxed, the knees are relaxed, your body relaxes. And just that practice, that grounding practice of understanding the sky above, the earth below, and me and life in between. And as you said, perfectly positioned in between.
Yeah, and it's so, I come back to it, gosh, so many times a day, that I am perfectly placed. I'm where I'm meant to be. And that is so, it's mindfulness in its very essence, isn't it? You know, and just to recognize, and how often we can do it wherever we are, whatever's going on. The sky is above us, the earth is beneath us, we are in the middle. It's humbling, isn't it? It's very much, you know, you get that connection, but you also feel, okay, this is where I'm meant to be. So it takes away all of that, what's going on next, what's gone on before, all of that. This is mindfulness in its very core. So simple, so wonderful. And when it's with you forever. So it really is. And I say to a lot of my clients all the time, whose mind wanders all the time, you know, you are where you're meant to be now. And as soon as you connect with what's above and what's below, you're not anywhere else.
I have chills on my body. I just have chills on my body, because honestly, Nadine, you know, I describe my former life the way I do. You describe your former life the way you have. We've shared that in other podcast episodes. And it's not that we're so perfect now. It's not that the old anxieties don't find us. It's not that worries don't creep in. It's not even that we don't face our own personal trauma. We are humans. Surely we do to all of those things. But these practices, and that it's called a practice, when those worries find you, right? When you're outside of your well-being buckets, right? When the worries find you, when the anxiety creeps in or trauma, you know, hits you, then you have a practice where you can really, truly come to this grounded place in the earth, right? The grounded place, as you talked about, your feet are on the ground. You feel your body calmly, confidently standing in a grounded way. And then you can feel the centering, you know, it's like this little rocking back and forth, less and less, till you come to the centered place where you are perfectly positioned, as you said, where I'm meant to be, standing above the earth, below the sky, right in the middle. And so it's really such a beautiful thing. Early on, as I began to study this and watch videos and say, what is this? I was introduced to Qigong through a book that my friend sent to me called The Healer Within, written by Dr. Jahnke. And the practices were all there, but then so were the terms and these principles that we're discussing.
Yes, yeah. I just love the way that you've come to it through a book, and I've come through it through, I, you know, never read a book. I've never seen these words written down. I didn't know that. I was just actually thrown in at the deep end, doing the movements from the start. So very different to you, but but still getting that wonderful experience and just doing the movements and feeling the feelings before I understood anything. And it doesn't matter which way round you do it, does it? It's connecting in whatever way comes to you. And that we've had those different experiences, which is wonderful, isn't it? To be able to share that with everyone, because who knows what way people are going to come to it.
Well, I know that people are going to come to it through this podcast series.
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's why I'm here. That's why I'm showing up. That's why I'm doing the work to create this offering, and why I'm grateful to you, to my core, for playing this game with me. Honestly, when Nadine and I get together, it's all play. But don't get me wrong, it's serious as life.
Yes, yeah.
It really, truly is. So you say, this is very important. You said, even before you understood. So this podcast is created to address a more cerebral kind of, what is that thing?
Yeah.
I need to know about it before I try it. So I came to it through a book, which I don't consider myself a book person, Nadine. So it's interesting that you picked up on that. But you came to it before you even understood these principles.
Yeah.
And that's something I really want to hit on. Inside the practice of Qigong are body movements. There's breath, there's meditation, and there's self-massage. But there are these body movements. And I just decided myself, Nadine, to start practicing these body movements, even before I sort of understood the principles as well. And one of the movements that I started with is what I call a sweeping gesture. So we're here in a small place, and the purpose of this podcast series is not your classroom.
No.
to learn the movements. But I want to invite you, if you're listening or watching this right now, to just take your hands, open them up all the way to the sky, and sweep them around wide, and down to the earth, and then back up to center, where your heart space is, your heart mind, your place of love.
Beautiful.
So honestly, Nadine, I walk my dog and I go to a field, which is not a beautiful field. It's a ratty old field where dogs can do what they do. And I started standing there and doing these sweeping gestures, these sweeping movements. Exactly.
Lovely.
And the reason I'm sharing it today, as we're discussing the three treasures, is that I did come to center. I did ground myself, even though the field I was standing on was not a field of beauty. It's a field of concrete and weeds. But still, in all, I am the treasure in between the earth below and the sky above. And I would stand there and close my eyes. I have my leash in one hand and do these sweeping gestures with my hand, but bringing to mind, invoking the earth below. Now, I am a person of nature. I have become a person of nature in my own journey, Nadine. So I do spend a lot of time out in nature. And invoking the sky above, where I can close my eyes and I can vision beautiful skies, blue, white clouds, red sunset, purple dusk. I mean, and so these sweeping gestures for me kind of really got me started, like, this thing really works,
Yeah.
So
Isn't it
what's your
wonderful?
experience with the
I
gestures?
just love what you said there, because it is so perfect that people put off doing things, don't they? Because they go, I'm not in the right place. I haven't got a beautiful setting. I haven't got this. I've got that. You've just proved you don't need it. You can get that feeling wherever you are. I was doing this in a ratty old church hall years ago, when I first started decades ago. It wasn't looking that pretty, but in my mind, whenever I connected to the earth, I was connecting to a beautiful, luscious earth and feeling that power and everything. The sky was always blue when I had it in my mind. And I was beautiful too in the middle of it all. So it doesn't matter, does it? You're absolutely right. Don't let anything put you off just trying this and starting something. And all we've just said, you know, connecting, I'm sure people are doing it while they're listening, just going, oh yeah, you're right, you know, feeling that feeling. Yes, moving with your hands, and a lot of the moves are so powerful because they're moving specific parts of your body and having that whole, you know, we're bringing, the sky is there for us, we're bringing it in to us. It's there for us. The earth is there for us. We're bringing that up to us. Two, and another term that I'm not sure if it's something you're familiar with, the dantian, which is the tummy, the belly breath, I call it, that's the center. So I'm welcoming everything that the sky offers me, everything that the earth offers me, to the middle of me, and focusing on that. You know, it's just so wonderful to welcome it in, and you feel it, don't you? You're absolutely right. It doesn't matter where you are, you feel it. And I always say the universe always gives, and it so does. All we have to do is just connect. And there we are. There we are.
I mean, for the people who are listening, not seeing this video, I have a huge smile on my face. I am familiar with the dantian. I am familiar with the middle, the core, you know, the place where it all comes together. You said something else that I would like to point out. And that is, you said, you talked about the old church hall where you started learning. And then you said decades ago.
Yes, it was.
So one of the reasons I wanted to share this podcast series and have this conversation, and I invited you to join me, is once again, you and I are coming together in a very, very important place. And that is, you have been a Qigong practitioner for decades, as you just shared.
Yeah.
And I can feel that because I can hear it in you. It's so natural and organic. But dear friends, I am new to the practice of Qigong. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I realized and I learned that while I'm new to the practice of Qigong, to the principles that I'm learning inside what is called Qigong, my self-care, self-help, and self-love journey included these same practices. And so even though I am new to Qigong, I want to invite you to understand that if you have a breathing practice, and that doesn't have to be, as Nadine said, at the perfect time, in the perfect place, in the perfect way. If you have been taught that you can take that breath in to reduce your worry, to reduce your anxiety, and bring yourself to what I call here and now, time and place, as Nadine says, perfectly placed where I'm meant to be in this moment, that actually is a practice of Qigong. And so, you know, I definitely want our listeners and viewers to understand that we're here to talk about one mindfulness practice, but people may already have pieces of the practice in place, right?
Yes, you're so right. And I just feel that this is the thing, you're describing it so well that, you know, you realized that you were doing all of this anyway, without the titles, without, you know, without putting it in its box, if you like. Most people will already have this. We start off our life that way, don't we? When we're little children, you know, we know what's going on. We know we're in the perfect place for us. We don't think about anything else. We complicate our life as we get older, don't we? But also, I think the difference as well, which I'd like people to understand, is that you are learning to teach this to people, aren't you, as a practice?
Yes.
I've never stepped into that. I just practice it myself. But the benefits and the understanding, they're very similar, aren't they? It's very much so. It doesn't matter where you're coming from for this, where you start at, it doesn't matter at all. When I started learning all these things, I couldn't say, oh, I realized that I've got heaven above me and sky and earth below me. I don't think I'd ever tapped into that. So that was new for me and beautiful. And you're saying, you know, you realized that before, but not realized it in this context. So it really doesn't matter, does it? And it's there for everybody, wherever they're at, whatever time they're at. And that little practice, like you say, about you doing it when you're not in the perfect setting, it just made me think about, it's so good for you to just tune into that. And as I say, it comes naturally to me all the time. When you're not in the right place, when you're maybe a bit uncomfortable or a bit uncertain, or maybe I've practiced it once when I was in a room full of people that I thought, I don't want to be here. And it was a meeting, a kind of thing. And I just went, okay, just for a moment, sky's above me, earth is below me, I'm perfectly placed. And I felt different. And I thought, okay, you know, it is so wonderful just to tune in, isn't it, for that quick moment and just feel different, feel better.
I love how you're saying tune in. That's exactly right. So now let's get back to the trees, Nadine.
Yes.
Yesterday, I went on a hike with some friends. It was a mountain hike, and it was, I don't know if it was considered expert, but a lot of people couldn't do this hike. We were going up and over rocks and roots and trail. And at one point, frankly, I lost my dog. And so I ended up, when I realized it, running about a 0.8 miles back to a certain area. I found him, and then I ran 0.8 back to where my friends were and continued on. But what happened was my knee from the running started swelling. And this is a problem I've had for years, and I always forget because I don't run that often. But my knee started hurting me a lot, and we were pretty far in at that point. And so I was just going slowly at my own pace, and they were going ahead, and that was perfectly fine. And this happened, what I'm about to tell you, and I kid you not, Nadine, this happened. At one point, it hurt so much going down. I was in such pain, the tears, came to my eyes, and I brought all of my learning in. It was shown to me. I didn't think, oh, I should do Qigong now. And I invoked the most gorgeous, I was on the side of a mountain, honestly, nature. And I took my hands and I put them on a tree.
Oh, wow.
And I put my forehead on the tree, and I thanked the tree for sharing its energy with me. This is one of the principles inside Qigong where we actually connect up in a real way with nature. We love, we thank nature. We give our energy back to nature, and we use the energy that nature provides us, right? The earth below. And I thanked the tree. I swear this is true, and I gave energy back. Now, I'm not going to say I was miraculously healed, but what I am going to say, at that moment, I was perfectly placed in a quiet calm, and my knee didn't hurt standing there. And it gave me energy to continue. My knee continued to hurt, Nadine, while I was walking. Of course, it was swollen, and, I didn't have Advil. I did put on a knee brace. But in that moment, that's what we're talking about. That energy infused me. And then I was able to go on. And that is a true story. And Nadine opened our podcast by sharing with us that she's looking at trees. And I said, I have a tree story. And that brings me back to in 2013, I ran the only half marathon I've ever run. And it's 13.1 miles. At about mile 11, I was really, very close to the end of being able to do this. And I did the same thing. But this was long before I had ever even heard of Qigong, Nadine.
Yeah.
I had never even, that's what I said. I invoked these practices. I put my foot up to tie my sneaker on this big, huge tree. And honestly, in that moment, I was so stretched from the run. I put my arms around the tree. Then I didn't know any of this that we're talking about. But even then, and before that, in my old life, I used to make fun of tree huggers, right? I've told you in other podcasts. So Nadine, this is such a beautiful conversation. And I'm so glad that we're sharing what I call the three treasures.
Yes,
right?
I love that. I love it.
The sky above, or you might say it might resonate with you, heaven above,
Yeah.
and earth below, and I in between.
Yes.
I am perfectly placed.
I
Nadine,
love
this is
that.
such a wonderful conversation. I'm having
Isn't it? I just love that. And I know also, just to remind people by doing that practice, that we are a treasure. We are a treasure. And people don't feel like that about themselves, do they? So I love that. And your story about, what you've got from the tree is just so beautiful. It's there for us all the time, isn't it? It really is. Nature wants to give us support all the time. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Now we must spend a minute or two talking about ourselves as a treasure. Thank you so much for saying that, for bringing that up. We are both coaches. I am a confidence coach. Nadine is the calmer self coach. She helps people in her practice every day through meditations, healing, conversation, coaching support, her own methodology, help you find and feel your calmer self. And I, do the same in my coaching practice.
You do.
And so I think that, Nadine, you and I are both equipped through our practices to say that many people do not see themselves as treasures, aren't we?
Yeah, you're so right. And this is what we share with people, isn't it? You boost people's confidence so they feel that they are treasure golden. That's how you make me feel, shining and bright, and it's wonderful. And like you say, the calm as well goes with the confidence so beautifully, doesn't it? And giving someone that moment of calm is a treasure. So we are treasures ourselves, and we are giving treasures to others so that they can find it for themselves as well. And that's what I love. And you must see that in your work all the time. When you see people that actually go, oh yes, I am a treasure. That's the joy, isn't it?
It's so fun in the video of our podcast conversation to see each of us vigorously nodding our heads
I know.
to what each other is saying. Yes,
I know.
indeed, I do. And I feel the energy. And of course, then there's the physical of people's self-judgment,
Yeah.
limiting negative beliefs, as they're called, even self-loathing that is based and fueled in old sacred wounding, as I call it, in life traumas and such. And another reason to learn about these practices and to just practice them yourself if you're interested in feeling a different way.
Yes.
In the introduction, I talk about how Dr. Jahnke refers to it as the healer within, the medicine within, even an elixir.
Yes.
And in just, the time that I've been studying this, I can understand how the physiology changes the mental state of being, which affects the emotional state of being in a healthier and happier way.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So true. Yeah, so true.
Well, listen, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation today. I already cannot wait for our next podcast episode. I want to thank you for joining me today. And I want to ask our listeners one question at this time. Can you see yourself as a treasure? And can you imagine yourself perfectly placed?
Beautiful.
All right, Nadine. See you
Thank
next time.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.